Picture your emotional well-being as a carefully curated glass shop, delicate, beautiful, and painstakingly assembled over years of personal growth, healing, and self-discovery. Each piece represents something precious: your self-worth, your capacity for joy, your ability to trust, your emotional stability. Now imagine an avoidant partner as a bull charging through this space, destroying everything with their emotional unavailability, inconsistency, and psychological chaos. The metaphor isn't hyperbolic, it's devastatingly accurate. The delicate architecture of your happiness isn't just a feeling. It's an intricate structure built from countless small victories, healed wounds, and hard-won insights about your own worth. Like a master glassblower's workshop, your emotional well-being contains pieces that took years to create: your confidence in your lovability, your trust in your own perceptions, your ability to set boundaries, your capacity to give and receive love freely. Each element of your emotional health is interconnected, supporting the others in a delicate balance that creates your overall sense of well-being. Your self-esteem supports your ability to maintain boundaries. Your trust in your intuition upholds your decision-making capacity. Your emotional stability enables your capacity for vulnerability and love. These pieces work together to create a beautiful, functional, emotional ecosystem that allows you to thrive. This glass shop of happiness didn't appear overnight. You've spent years carefully selecting each piece, polishing rough edges, repairing damage from previous relationships, and arranging everything in perfect harmony. You've invested time, energy, therapy, self-reflection, and countless small acts of self-care to build this sanctuary of emotional health. Every piece represents not just who you are, but who you've worked to become. The shop also contains your hopes and dreams for love, crystal figurines representing your vision of partnership, your expectations for how you deserve to be treated, your belief in the possibility of mutual emotional investment. These pieces are particularly delicate because they represent your vulnerable hopes for the future rather than established realities from your past. Your happiness glass shop includes your social connections, career satisfaction, personal interests, and sources of joy that exist independently of romantic relationships. These pieces provide stability and meaning to your life, creating a foundation that should support you through relationship challenges. They represent your wholeness as an individual rather than your incompleteness seeking completion through partnership. The bullsip's destructive entry. When an avoidant partner enters your emotional world, they don't tiptoe carefully among your precious pieces. They charge in with the subtlety of a bull, immediately disrupting the careful balance you've created. Their emotional unavailability doesn't just affect your romantic life, it crashes into every aspect of your emotional well-being, sending shockwaves through your entire internal ecosystem. The bull doesn't intend to cause destruction. It's simply too large, too clumsy, and too unconscious of its impact to navigate delicate spaces safely. Avoidant partners often have no awareness of how their behavior affects your emotional stability because they're focused entirely on managing their own discomfort with intimacy. They're not malicious, they're just catastrophically unsuited for the delicate environment of another person's happiness. Their inconsistent behavior immediately threatens your sense of security and predictability. One day, they're affectionate and present, carefully moving through your space without damage. The next day, they're emotionally distant, crashing through your need for consistency and leaving confusion in their wake. This unpredictability makes it impossible to feel safe or relaxed in your own emotional space. The bull's presence changes the entire atmosphere of your glass shop. Instead of being a place of peace and beauty, it becomes a space of anxiety and hypervigilance. You find yourself constantly monitoring the bull's movements, trying to predict when it might charge again, moving your most precious pieces to safer locations, and gradually restricting your own movement to accommodate its destructive potential. Their emotional withdrawal doesn't just disappoint you, it shatters your carefully constructed beliefs about your own worth and lovability. Each time they pull away, they knock over another piece of your self-esteem, sending fragments of self-doubt scattering across the floor of your consciousness. You begin to question whether you're too needy, too emotional, or too much for anyone to love consistently. The systematic destruction of self-worth. The most valuable pieces in your happiness glass shop are often the first casualties of the bull's rampage. Your self-worth, displayed prominently as the centerpiece of your emotional collection, becomes an immediate target. The avoidant's inability to consistently value your presence sends this precious piece crashing to the ground, shattering into fragments of self-doubt and insecurity. Each instance of their emotional unavailability chips away at your confidence in your own lovability. You begin to internalize their limitations as evidence of your inadequacy, slowly dismantling the self-worth you spent years building. The bull doesn't just break these pieces, it tramples them underfoot, grinding them into dust that becomes impossible to sweep away completely. Your ability to trust your own perceptions becomes another casualty. When someone treats you poorly while claiming to care about you, when they withdraw while insisting nothing is wrong, when they make you feel crazy for noticing their emotional distance, your internal compass gets smashed beyond recognition. You lose faith in your ability to accurately assess situations and people. The destruction extends to your beliefs about what you deserve in relationships. The beautiful crystal formation representing your standards and expectations gets knocked over repeatedly until you begin to believe that maybe your expectations were too high. Maybe you're asking for too much. Maybe this is the best you can hope for. The bull's presence slowly lowers the ceiling of your dreams. Your emotional stability, once a sturdy foundation piece, develops cracks and fissures under the constant pressure of uncertainty. You find yourself walking on eggshells, trying to prevent further damage by making yourself smaller, quieter, and less demanding. The bull has taught you that your natural size and presence are too much for the space you're trying to share. The domino effect of emotional chaos. When the bull knocks over one piece in your happiness glass shop, it creates a domino effect that spreads destruction throughout your entire emotional ecosystem. Your damaged self-worth affects your ability to maintain healthy boundaries with friends and family. Your shattered trust impacts your performance at work and your willingness to pursue new opportunities. The chaos spreads far beyond your romantic relationship. Your social connections begin to suffer as you become increasingly preoccupied with managing the bull's presence in your space. Friends notice your anxiety, your constant analysis of your partner's behavior, your gradual withdrawal from activities you used to enjoy. The bull's destructive presence isolates you from your support system just when you need it most. Your career and personal goals get knocked aside as you invest more and more energy in trying to manage the bull, predict its movements, and minimize its damage. You stop pursuing opportunities that might make you happy because you're too exhausted from constant damage control. The bull doesn't just destroy what exists, it prevents new growth and expansion. Your physical health becomes collateral damage, as the stress of living with constant emotional chaos manifests in headaches, insomnia, anxiety disorders, and other stress-related conditions. The bull's presence creates a toxic environment that affects every system in your body, not just your emotional well-being. Even your relationship with yourself deteriorates as you become increasingly focused on accommodating the bull rather than honoring your own needs and desires. You lose touch with who you are outside of your role as damage control manager, sacrificing your authentic self to maintain a relationship that's destroying everything you've worked to build. The false hope of teaching the bull to navigate carefully. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of this metaphor is how much time and energy you spend trying to teach the bull to move more carefully through your space. You research avoidant attachment, read relationship books, attend therapy, and develop elaborate strategies for helping your partner understand the delicate nature of your emotional world. You create detailed maps of your glass shop, pointing out which pieces are most fragile, explaining the history and significance of each element, hoping that understanding will lead to more careful navigation. You invest enormous amounts of emotional labor and education that the bull neither requested nor truly wants to receive. You try making your space more bull-friendly by removing the most delicate pieces, simplifying your emotional needs, and creating wider pathways for the bull to move through without causing damage. But these accommodations require you to diminish the beauty and complexity of your own emotional world, making your happiness smaller and less authentic to accommodate someone else's limitations. The bull occasionally shows signs of learning, moving more carefully for short periods, giving you hope that your teaching efforts are working. These moments of apparent progress keep you invested in the relationship despite the ongoing destruction, believing that permanent change is possible if you just find the right approach or give it more time. But bulls aren't meant for glass shops, no matter how much training they receive. Their fundamental nature, their size, their clumsiness, their tendency to charge when startled, makes them inherently incompatible with delicate environments. The occasional careful step doesn't change their basic unsuitability for your emotional space. The Stockholm Syndrome of romantic destruction. Living with a bull in your glass shop creates a psychological phenomenon similar to Stockholm Syndrome, where you begin to identify with and defend your captor. You start making excuses for the bull's destructive behavior, explaining to friends and family that it doesn't mean to cause damage, that it's just scared or confused, that with enough patience and understanding, it will learn to be more careful. You begin to see the destruction as normal, even inevitable, adjusting your expectations downward until you're grateful for any day that passes without major damage. You celebrate the bull's restraint when it only knocks over small pieces instead of destroying major installations, viewing this as progress rather than recognizing it as continued destruction. The trauma bonding that develops makes you feel protective of the bull, defending its right to be in your space, even when others point out the obvious damage it's causing. You become invested in proving that the relationship can work, that love can overcome incompatibility, that patience can transform fundamental nature. You start to believe that leaving would be giving up, that a strong person would find a way to make it work, that the bull's presence in your life is somehow worth the constant destruction it causes. This thinking keeps you trapped in a cycle of damage and repair that gradually erodes your standards and your sense of what healthy love should look like. The isolation that results from constantly defending the bull's presence further deepens your dependence on the destructive relationship. When friends and family express concern about the damage they're witnessing, you distance yourself from them rather than reconsidering the bull's place in your life. The exhaustion of constant repair work. Living with a bull in your glass shop means becoming a full-time repair specialist, constantly fixing, replacing, and reinforcing the pieces that get damaged in your emotional space. This repair work becomes so consuming that you lose sight of what it feels like to simply enjoy your happiness without constantly monitoring and maintaining it. Every day becomes an assessment of new damage. Which piece of your self-esteem got chipped last night? How can you repair your sense of security after another episode of emotional withdrawal? What needs to be reinforced before the bull's next unpredictable movement? The constant repair work exhausts your emotional resources and prevents you from growing or expanding your happiness. You become so skilled at damage repair that you convince yourself this is normal relationship maintenance. You develop elaborate coping strategies, emergency repair kits, and quick fixes for common types of destruction. But this expertise in crisis management isn't relationship health, it's trauma adaptation. The energy spent on constant repair work is energy stolen from creating new, beautiful pieces for your collection. Instead of expanding your capacity for joy, developing new interests, or deepening existing friendships, you're perpetually in crisis management mode, trying to maintain what you have rather than growing what could be. Eventually, you become so tired from the constant repair work that you stop bothering to fix some pieces. You learn to live with chipped self-esteem, cracked boundaries, and damaged dreams, because the energy required to maintain them feels impossible to sustain. Your standards gradually lower as your capacity for repair diminishes. The hidden cost of accommodation. To protect your remaining pieces from the bull's destructive presence, you begin making accommodations that fundamentally change the nature of your happiness glass shop. You remove the most delicate pieces, your dreams of deep emotional intimacy, your expectations for consistent love, your belief in your right to emotional security, storing them away where they can't be damaged but also can't bring you joy. You rearrange your entire emotional space around the bull's limitations, creating wide corridors for its clumsy movements while sacrificing the intimate corners where your most precious pieces used to live. Your happiness becomes less complex, less beautiful, and less authentically yours as you adapt it to accommodate someone else's destructive nature. The accommodation process requires you to deny parts of yourself that don't fit with the bull's presence. Your natural emotional expressiveness gets muted because it startles the bull into destructive episodes. Your spontaneity gets controlled because unpredictability makes the bull nervous and more likely to charge. Your authentic self gets smaller and quieter to avoid triggering destructive behavior. These accommodations feel like compromises that will preserve the relationship, but they actually represent the slow dismantling of your authentic happiness. You're not adapting to make the relationship work. You're disappearing to avoid further destruction. The bull doesn't have to change because you've changed everything about yourself and your space to accommodate its limitations. The tragedy of these accommodations is that they don't actually prevent destruction. They just relocate it. When you remove your most precious pieces to protect them, you create an emotional space that no longer reflects who you are or what brings you joy. The bull may cause less obvious damage, but your happiness itself has been fundamentally diminished. The moment of recognition. There comes a moment in every glass shop when the owner must face the reality of the destruction and make a choice, continue accommodating the bull or reclaim the space for its intended purpose. This moment of recognition often comes when you realize that you no longer recognize your own emotional landscape, that the beautiful space you worked so hard to create has been transformed into a mere survival zone. The recognition might come when a friend points out how much you've changed, how your joy has dimmed, how you've become a shadow of your former self. It might come when you realize you can't remember the last time you felt genuinely happy, rather than just relieved that no major damage occurred. It might come when you understand that you're spending more energy managing the bull than enjoying your life. This moment is both devastating and liberating. Devastating because it requires acknowledging how much destruction has occurred and how much of yourself you've sacrificed. Liberating because it opens the possibility of reclaiming your space and rebuilding your happiness according to your own vision rather than the bull's limitations. The recognition also involves understanding that the bull's presence isn't your fault, but continuing to accommodate it is your choice. You didn't cause the bull to be destructive, but you have the power to decide whether it continues to have access to your emotional space. This distinction between responsibility for the bull's nature and responsibility for your own choices is crucial for moving forward. The process of eviction. Removing a bull from your glass shop isn't simple or painless, especially when you've become attached to its presence despite the destruction it causes. The eviction process requires courage, support, and a clear vision of what your space could look like without the constant threat of destruction. The first step is often the hardest, accepting that the bull cannot be trained to navigate your delicate space safely. This acceptance requires letting go of the hope that love, patience, or understanding can fundamentally change someone's capacity for emotional care. Bulls and glass shops are inherently incompatible, regardless of good intentions or temporary improvements. Physical eviction involves setting and maintaining boundaries that protect your emotional space from further damage. This might mean ending the relationship, limiting contact, or creating emotional distance that prevents the bull from accessing your most vulnerable pieces. The process often feels cruel because bulls rarely understand why they're being evicted from spaces they've come to consider home. The eviction process also involves resisting the bull's attempts to return, which often intensify when it realizes it's losing access to your space. Bulls often become more careful and attentive when faced with eviction, providing temporary hope that permanent change is possible. But this improved behavior is typically motivated by fear of loss rather than genuine development of new skills. Support from friends, family, or professionals becomes crucial during the eviction process because the bull's presence has often isolated you from your support system. Rebuilding these connections helps you remember what healthy relationships look like and provides encouragement during the difficult process of reclaiming your space. The restoration project. Once the bull has been evicted, you're left with the massive project of restoring your happiness glass shop to its former beauty. This restoration work is different from the constant emergency repairs you've become accustomed to. It's creative, intentional, and focused on rebuilding rather than just surviving. The restoration begins with assessing the damage honestly and completely. Some pieces can be repaired, others must be completely replaced, and some were so thoroughly destroyed that they need to be reimagined entirely. Your self-worth might need complete reconstruction rather than simple repair. Your ability to trust might require building from scratch rather than patching cracks. The restoration process also involves retrieving the precious pieces you removed for safekeeping and deciding whether they still fit in your rebuilt space. Some dreams and expectations might need updating based on what you've learned. Some boundaries might need reinforcing to prevent future bulls from entering your space. Creating new pieces for your collection becomes part of the healing process. You might develop a beautiful sculpture representing your courage in evicting the bull, or a delicate piece symbolizing your commitment to protecting your own happiness. These new additions reflect your growth and wisdom gained from the experience. The restoration also involves improving your shop's security system to prevent future bulls from entering your space. This might mean developing better screening processes for potential partners, creating stronger boundaries around your emotional well-being, or building support systems that help you recognize destructive patterns before they cause major damage. Learning to recognize bulls before they enter. One of the most valuable outcomes of surviving a bull in your glass shop is developing the ability to recognize potential bulls before they gain access to your emotional space. You learn to identify the warning signs: emotional unavailability disguised as independence, charm that doesn't extend to consistent behavior, reluctance to discuss feelings and future plans. You develop screening processes that protect your space without closing it off to genuinely compatible partners. These processes might include observing how potential partners handle emotional conversations, how they treat service workers or other vulnerable people, or how they respond when you express needs or boundaries. The experience teaches you to trust your intuition about people's capacity for emotional care. If someone feels emotionally clumsy or destructive, you learn to believe that feeling rather than hoping that love can overcome fundamental incompatibilities. You develop confidence in your ability to assess emotional safety before allowing access to your vulnerable spaces. You also learn to distinguish between temporary bad behavior and fundamental character traits. Everyone occasionally acts poorly, but bulls have consistent patterns of emotional destruction that persist regardless of consequences or feedback. Learning this distinction helps you extend appropriate grace without exposing yourself to systematic destruction. The beauty of a bull-free space. Living in a happiness glass shop without bulls is a revelation for those who have become accustomed to constant destruction and hypervigilance. Without the threat of emotional chaos, you can relax and enjoy your beautiful pieces without constantly monitoring for potential damage. The space becomes a sanctuary again rather than a survival zone. Your creativity and joy return when you're not spending all your energy on damage control. You can pursue new interests, deepen existing friendships, and develop aspects of yourself that were neglected during the bull management period. Your authentic self emerges from the protective shell you developed to survive emotional destruction. The quality of your relationships improves dramatically when you're no longer modeling acceptance of poor treatment. Friends and family feel safer around you because you're not constantly defending destructive behavior or asking them to accommodate someone who makes them uncomfortable. Your social connections strengthen when you're emotionally available rather than perpetually crisis managing. Most importantly, you develop the capacity to recognize and appreciate partners who are naturally suited to delicate emotional environments. These people move carefully through your space, not because you've trained them, but because they naturally value and protect what's precious to others. They enhance rather than diminish your happiness. The wisdom of saying no to bulls. Perhaps the greatest gift of this experience is learning that it's not only acceptable, but necessary to refuse entry to anyone who cannot safely navigate your emotional space. This isn't discrimination, it's self-preservation and wisdom gained through experience. Your happiness is too precious to sacrifice for someone else's inability to value and protect it. Saying no to bulls doesn't make you close-minded, demanding, or impossible to please. It makes you someone who values their own well-being enough to maintain standards that protect what they've worked to build. It makes you someone who understands that love without emotional safety isn't actually love at all. The wisdom extends to understanding that some people are simply incompatible with your emotional needs, not because either of you is wrong, but because you require different environments to thrive. Bulls belong in open fields where their natural behavior doesn't cause destruction. Glass shops need occupants who appreciate and protect delicate beauty. Your happiness glass shop is not a rehabilitation center for emotionally destructive people. It's a carefully curated space that reflects your values, growth, and vision for your life. Protecting it from destruction isn't selfishness. It's the foundation for everything else you want to build in your life, including healthy relationships with people who can truly appreciate and enhance the beauty you've created.